I now call to order the September 10th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting, time being 6:30 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please do a roll call?
Trustee Cannon.
Here.
Trustee Daly.
Present.
Trustee Moyer.
Here.
Trustee Teets.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? No. Are there any conflicts of interest with the agenda this evening? No. All right, so now it's time for public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on non-agenda items, please sign in on the sheet behind the podium, and then state your name clearly into the microphone, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. And if you guys get close and speak into that microphone,
You can pull it down.
you can, and it flexes.
There you go. Oh, good job.
Hello, my name is Lucas, and this is my brother Vigo, and we're here to ask for a four-way stop sign to be put at the intersection just north of our house. So people are driving down our street way too fast, sometimes over 50 miles per hour, even though the speed limit is only 25. This makes it quite dangerous. Within a 4-week period, there have been 2 hit-and-run accidents right outside our house, and if there hadn't been parked cars in front, the speeding cars could have crashed into our front yard, our house, or our neighbor's house. It is not safe for us to be in the front of our house. There's several kids living on our street. We want it to be safe for everyone. We hope the town will help us by putting up a stop sign to slow the cars down. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And where was the location you wanted the stop sign?
Be on 2nd and McKinley. And I'm Steve. I'm Lucas and Vigo's dad, my wife Annika. Just a little more information to kind of fill this in. We've actually had to move all the boys' activities from the front yard to the backyard. Speeding has gotten pretty excessive south on 2nd Street. Currently, it's a straight shot from Cleveland down to McKinley. And we did, June of this year, have 2 hit-and-run accidents inside of the month. One nearly totaling my truck and one causing damage to the rental truck I had while that one was in the shop getting figured out. It's been an ongoing issue for quite a while, and we've worked with the Sheriff's Department. They've been stoic professionals, but they also probably have bigger things to do. And so our hope is that a piece of hardware is going to be enough to make the issue a little bit better for everybody on the street, because we do have, most houses will have kids or dogs. So we'd just like to submit this to you for consideration. And if you guys have any other questions for us, we're happy to provide any other information that you might need. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Seaworth. I live at 4283 White Deer Lane. I've been basically a resident of this town for some 77 years. And I just wanted to come give you a little history, because things happen that you don't think about. Some 20 years ago, I got a phone call from a guy by the name of Bill Botkins, who had Bob Gowing's job at that time, and Larry Lorenzen, who had Patty's job at that time, and they were pretty much in a panic because they didn't have any water in Lake 3, and they'd been pumping the wells as hard as they could, and they said they had 5,000 people to feed, and the water and the wells couldn't keep up. So they wanted to use one of my wells, which I told them they could. So they said, but they had to get a state permit to do it. The next day, we had people crawling over our farm you couldn't even believe. Well, they didn't give them that permit because the wells had galvanized casings, which I could have told them that from the start, but they didn't ask. So the issue here is And I brought some pictures just to let you know, this is what your reservoir looked like in the early aught years. And it also looked like this in the early 50s. In my lifetime, it's been empty twice. And you need to take a look at this because I guarantee you your wells will not keep up and you need another source of water. And if you don't get with this, we could have a drought in the next 5 years that could happen. But what could be even worse, tomorrow, if you drive up County Road 11 by that lake, you'll see a spot there where you can just drive right off into the lake. I've followed fertilizer trucks up there, manure trucks, pesticide, herbicide, insecticide trucks up there. They blow a tire at the wrong time. You don't have a protection. For Christ's sake, put a guardrail in to protect our water supply and get with having another water supply. The North Pooter contract you have, if you look at the bottom of it, you'll see my dad's signature there. I was there when he signed it. And I can tell you that the town assured him at that time you'd never use over 500 acre foot unless there was some kind of an emergency, a major fire or something. And they were going to get another water supply. That's been going on for 40 years and nobody's done anything. And I can tell you tomorrow morning, if that lake gets contaminated, I don't know what you're going to do, but the water problem in this town is going to be way worse than it already is. And I want to let you know that you really need to do something. This is not just a problem. This is an emergency, could happen to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marge McKenzie and this is my husband. He's supposed to stand up here with me, but he's going to. but- And we live on
the southeast corner of Second Street and McKinley,
with this family. And
where we would like this stop sign,
we moved here in 1991.
91.
And our kids are all grown and gone now. But I can tell you that there's always been kids on that, using that intersections. And they whip through on their bikes sometimes, little ones who don't look. But other than they speed through there, they've also, and the growth maybe, and a new problem has been coming up more and more over the last couple of years. They use that intersection like for U-turns. So not only do they they don't want to go this way.
It's
they're
almost
turning-
like a roundabout.
Yeah, so they come from Main Street where they've either been to a restaurant or, and they don't want to go that way. They want to go the other way. So they whip through, hardly slow down, crap a U, as we said in Illinois, and then head on out. And I think those U-turns they're doing are terribly, terribly dangerous. Nothing to slow them down. And if I had young kids like this, I'd be worried too. So,
And we did, just coming up here, we did notice the new stop sign, the four-way, relatively new,
By
by the
Phillips.
city building.
What?
I think we need something in the neighborhoods.
we'd like 4 of those. So, and I'm
So-
sure it's because of Main Street and the growth. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, no more further public comment? Okay, next, we will have the proclamation for National Cleanup Day. Whereas the town of Wellington, in partnership with the Wellington, Colorado Main Street Program, will sponsor National Cleanup Day on September 21st, 2024. Whereas the town of Wellington and the Wellington, Colorado Main Street Program recognize the need to protect the health and beauty of our community as well as our nation, now and in the future. And whereas National Cleanup Day represents the vital partnership between our town, local land managers, local businesses, and nonprofit organizations. And whereas National Cleanup Day is an opportunity for Wellington residents, organizations, and businesses to join together and take pride in the health and beauty of our community by collectively volunteering to clean up neighborhoods, parks, schools, and businesses. And whereas when we participate in activities such as National Cleanup Day, we set a good example for our children, teaching them we care about protecting our land and open spaces, which in turn promotes economic vitality, strengthens community and property values, and preserves our environment. Whereas when we partner as a community to provide a cleaner, safer environment, we encourage everyone to take pride in our community, creating a bridge to citizen engagement. Now therefore, I, Kaylor Shosse, Mayor of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim September 21st, 2024 as National Cleanup Day in the Town of Wellington, and I urge all residents and businesses, civic groups, government agencies, and citizens to participate in this event by helping their community and supporting efforts to protect our land, water, and air. So I'll sign that. And we do not have a presentation for this one today, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. All right, and then the next proclamation we have is going to be Cities and Towns Week. Whereas municipal government is the government closest to the most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas municipal government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to the understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas municipal government officials and employees share responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas Colorado Cities and Towns Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by municipal government in our lives. And whereas the Colorado Municipal League's member cities and towns have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Colorado Cities and Towns Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all citizens of Colorado that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now, therefore, I, Kaylor Shosse, Mayor of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of September 11th through the 17th of 2024 as Cities to Town Week in the Town of Wellington, and I encourage all citizens, elected officials, and employees to ensure that this week is celebrated accordingly. And I'll present this to Trustee Rebecca Daly.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, next we have a presentation from Mr. Nick Redavid on the proposed 2025 fee schedule. Mr. Redavid.
Just one quick second to get it. There we go. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board. Thank you for your time tonight. Tonight's presentation is the 2025 fee schedule. So we are deep, as I'm sure you all know, in the midst of budget planning for 2025. And key important part of that is to understand that we are covering our costs for services and projecting our revenues for the next year. And a component of that is going to be reviewing our fee schedule. So tonight, we'll just present it, and in 2 weeks, we'll bring it back for consideration for adoption. All right, so the annual review of the fee schedule, like I said, is an integral step in the budget process. In previous years, the fee schedule has been consolidated into one document and approved as a whole. We'll be doing that again this year and bringing it back on September 24th. The effective date of this fee schedule will be January 1st of 2025. Utility rates, which are the water, wastewater, and stormwater, have been removed from the fee schedule this year as they are reviewed and approved separately. The developer and impact fee rates are included, but those will also be reviewed during the utility rate presentation. So the fee schedule that is presented on September 24th will be updated again with that utility, the developer and impact fee part will be updated again with the utility rate presentation. One big thing you'll notice is that the format has been updated. Sections have been grouped together by category. This was just to allow for easy navigation for our community. And I do have several slides. You'll see the changes are highlighted, and I have a couple notes on those as well. So this is the look of the new fee schedule. We do have administrative and operations as our first section. When we get into there, you'll see under cemetery, there have been several changes proposed in a comprehensive review of the communities around us, ensuring that we were also covering our costs for the cemetery. We have proposed several changes. One that I do want to call out is that the infant 2 years and under grave space fee has been moved to 0 because currently they're actually paying $200 and they're paying for an opening and closing casket. So this is effectively cutting that expense in half. We're also going to change the perpetual care contribution. So this is the long-term planning for the cemetery to a percentage rather than a flat dollar amount. This just gives us a little bit of flexibility in the future should the rates change. We have also introduced 2 new sections under grave space, which is the cremains for resident and non-resident. So it is a lesser charge, lesser fee for residents of the town of Wellington and still open to non-residents. And again, the bottom chart shows the review of all the neighboring communities. So that is where those fees to stay within market came from. On the miscellaneous section, we wanted to be a little bit more transparent. NSF fees, non-sufficient fund fees, essentially when a check is returned unpaid, is already charged for utility bills. It's also charged in other areas, so this was just an opportunity to be more transparent. We've included some additional code changes to the core request in line with the Colorado revised statutes. One fee that is missing from this that will be included in the final review is a notary fee. We'll be introducing, it's $5 a document, which is in line with what Larimer County charges as well. So the bottom section shows what the current fees are for those. On the next section, next category is our business and business specific. So this is going to be our licenses for businesses, including business licenses, liquor licenses, and marijuana licenses. And the only change, and I apologize, I did not highlight it, is the home occupation fee that was called out in the current fee schedule has been removed from business licenses. Business licenses has moved to our planning and building department, and in their processes, they are handling those licenses differently. So it does not need its own separate line item. Other than that, this is the impact and capital investment section where the water and sewer capital investment fees with raw water requirements are listed. And this is the section that will be addressed again during the utility rate presentation. Then we go into parks, recreation, open space, and trails. And the recreation fees are updated by the Parks and Recreation Manager to ensure that their costs are covered. There's no changes listed here, but those could be changed throughout the year. The engineering review fees for our planning and building department. No changes on those. Except for the very end, in a section that used to be known as excavation fees, we're clarifying is actually right-of-way use and construction fees. And we wanted to separate out what is considered a small project where there's no change to the fee on those, but we are giving some discretion to leadership within the organization on those larger projects and the costs associated with them. So that's where the contact town for fee on large projects costing more than 20,000. So in your packet, you were provided the current fee schedule as well as the proposed fee schedule. And at this time, just wanted to entertain any questions, any feedback, so that we can bring back a final version for you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Mr. David. Before we go on to questions from the board, after the adoption of Bob's rules at our last official meeting, I will be practicing the 5-minute time limit. Well, I guess we didn't. Yeah, but I'm gonna start affecting it now. And then we'll go around, each person will get their moment to speak. If you want to request more time after that, I may grant it, may not, but everybody will be given the same opportunities, so there's equity among the discussions. Go ahead and start with Trustee Teets. Any questions?
I do not have questions. I have an ask if our trustees are open to it. I know that we did we removed the infant 2 years and under. I was curious if we can also look at doing something for veterans related to a percentage of a discount if a family is burying a veteran at our cemetery. So I'm not looking for like half off or free or anything like that, but maybe say 20% of a resident or non-resident cost for our veteran families that are burying their soldiers here in Wellington.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I like that. How do you guys feel about that for direction?
I'm 100% supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Okay.
20%?
Trustee Teets, do you want to put something formal to that? Or do you want staff to come up with something?
I'd like staff to come up with something because
Okay.
I want to make sure we're recovering costs, but I also want to make sure that we're noting that we're willing to say that we appreciate what they've done. And this is the last thing that a family member wants to do is have to do that. So it makes it more gentle on them.
I will get it taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Teets. Anything further?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Moyer. Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
Good work. Thank you for putting this together, and no questions.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
No questions, but I do want to point out that on the cemetery, that local residents do get a break. And we definitely want to make sure that they know that out-of-towners that come in here do pay a little bit of a surplus. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Daly.
And that was one of my questions about it, about resident versus non-resident. My hope is that historically residents would be considered residents as well, rather than just like people who are current residents at this time. So, I mean, if they grew up here, for example, I don't know if we would consider them residents or not. It's kind of like being laid to rest in your hometown kind of thing. So maybe something to consider for that if historically they were a resident at some point versus currently.
Sure, I think it's either as I was doing my research, it's either the town of Alt or the town of Nunn that does something like that. They
Okay.
have it written specific in their bylaws for their cemetery. So let me look into that and we can get that added for the next go
Great.
round.
Okay, thank you. No other questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Perfect. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Director, for the presentation here. Really appreciate that you put the market analysis in here as far as getting some of these numbers in line. That way folks have some context to some of these. Do want to thank Trustee Teets for putting that forward as far as the veterans discount go. Me being a veteran, obviously that hits very, very close to home for me. So really appreciate that recommendation. Other than that, I just really wanted to highlight to folks that we will be discussing impact fees and water rates at a future meeting. Obviously, they're included on the fee schedule here tonight, but we will be discussing that going forward. So other than that, I have no issues with anything that's been presented here. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to thank you for coming with this presentation. I think it's really cool to see everything from the other municipalities with their cemeteries. I did want to note that former Mayor Pro Tem Ashley McDonald had a huge heart for the cemetery and how it had been or could see more improvements. And this is one of the first steps to be able for us to be able to afford to do that and provide our citizens with a great place to lay to rest. So I appreciate that. Yeah, other than that, I have no questions. I think the veterans deal is great, and along with historic residents as well. So that's all that I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And then although the board does not generally provide public comment on these presentations, I would like to open this up if there are any public comments, just because it is a fee schedule, and get any feedback if there is any. Okay. Perfect. On to the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the titles on the consent agenda?
Resolution number 45-2024, a resolution amending the Town of Wellington Water Utility Hardship Program. Resolution number 46-2024, a resolution authorizing the temporary closure of portions of State Highway 1 Cleveland Avenue, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, and 4th Street within the Town of Wellington during the annual Trick or Treat Down Main Street event on October 31, 2024, and on the August 27, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Ms. Clerk, will you please read the title for item E1?
Resolution number 47-2024, a resolution approving the Town of Wellington Community Grant application.
Perfect.
And I'm just going to do it from here if that's all right.
That's great. Ms. Garcia, the town administrator, will present on this item.
So several weeks ago, I brought to you a conceptual plan and draft of a community grant application that would be in use for 2025, since the Board of Trustees has moved all of their discretionary fund to the Hardship Utility Grant Fund. So this would be something that would be put into place for 2025. The application shows the maximum amount of $2,500, which you all had kind of discussed, but I felt like there wasn't true consensus, but I wanted to make sure that we were following the board's direction. I would like to get something in place prior to 2025. So this is one of those things we can kind of check off the list if possible. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Start with Trustee Moore.
I apologize. I do have one question. As I was going through this before I came tonight, it struck me that we don't have a limit on times that an organization can apply per year. So I'm wondering if we might want to approve this with an amendment to include some sort of limit to applications.
Most municipalities only allow one application per year, and then they're only allowed to request funding another year assuming that they completed a follow-up report explaining how those funds were used. So I can include that as an amendment.
All right, thank you. Trustee Teets.
I feel comfortable with the amendment suggestion that trustee Moyer had made. I'm comfortable with the 2,500. I feel that a good amount of something can be accomplished with $2,500 when you're looking at funding an event for a nonprofit organization. So, nope, I'm completely comfortable with how it's written. Thank you so much, Patty. I know this has been an ask for probably 2 years.
Yes. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
I like what you got wrote out here. 2,500, I think is a very fair amount, and I'm glad to see it coming from our discretionary fund. So, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daly.
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
The only thing I've got on this is just because of grants that we've approved in the past, especially as far as the Wellington Community Center for the $10,000 for the elevator going over there. The only thing that concerns me about the $2,500 mark is if an entity is wanting more than that, I would not want to discourage them from applying. So if the rest of the board is good with the 2,500, I suppose I'm fine with that, but I think there should be some mechanism we put in place where if folks want to ask for more than that, then maybe they come talk to the board as far as that goes. But I would like to see it probably more than 2,500, just knowing that we've approved things in the past that are greater than that amount.
Thank you. Okay. I'm fine with where it's at, but I hear what you're saying. And then we're going to go back around and deliberate on that a little bit. Trustee Moore.
Being as this is my background, I would agree with Trustee Mason wholeheartedly. I think that 2,500, yes, I do agree with Trustee Teets, can accomplish many things, but I think that historically it's been awarded in much larger sums, and we do have organizations that may want to request more, and they shouldn't be out of the running simply because their ask is a little larger. So I'm supportive of either no limit or increasing the limit.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
I absolutely understand where Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Moyer are coming from. I'm open to the generalized idea if there's a clause that we can put in there that they can check a box to request additional funds and then have that come before the board if we need to go above the 2,500. So make a note stating that additional funds can be requested if this box is checked, and then they can find out more details for us and maybe present it to us in one of our meetings.
So all of the applications will come before the board. The staff will not be making any decisions on the discretionary fund. Those are the Board of Trustees
Okay.
funds. So every application will come to you. We can add just a separate little box to check that, yes, we've applied for the $2,500. We can phrase it somehow, but we need additional funds in order to accomplish our mission or whatever that is. So we can amend that as well, if the board is supportive of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
I like that with that little addendum added to it. And I'd say mainly it should be leveled at 2,500, but with special consideration. Thank you.
Perfect. Trustee Cannon.
Just a couple of things. I appreciate everyone's work on this. I appreciate the fact that, this is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. I've always approached tax revenues collected from the public as being for specific municipal purposes and not necessarily to be given to other agencies. Now, I know that happens. I liked particularly the $2,500 cap. Besides, our discretionary fund is pretty much going to be zero with the HUG grant that we just approved, and moving all of those funds into the HUD grant program. So we will not have any discretionary funds, at least through the end of the year through that. I just would want to have a little bit of caution about not having a cap on this. And it's not so much that the organizations or these events and so forth like that don't warrant our support. I'm just concerned of the scrutiny that might come from our residents who might saying, you know, I'm paying taxes and you're giving that money to this church, or you're giving money to this organization, so forth like that. And people may not agree with those particular organizations or the missions or so forth like that. So having a cap for me is,
What would you propose the cap to be?
I'd keep it 2,500. But I mean, that's just me. And again, I think that's a reasonable amount that it's not going to raise a lot of red flags. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daly.
I'm in support of, consideration of a larger amount than 2,500 as needed and based off that specific consideration. So that what we were just talking about. I do want to note that too, that part of the criterion guidelines, it does, and I see your concern, Trustee Cannon, so I definitely can relate to that. But one of the actual criteria are saying that the use of these funds and this grant, I guess if you think of it that way, has to benefit Wellington, like public Wellington in general. And I'm curious, this was something I was considering earlier on, is if there was a thematic goal or purpose of these type of grant funds of, initiating projects that will serve Wellington in which way, not necessarily things that promote year after year after year, but like kind of a startup function. And that's kind of how we technically thought of it previously. So I'm wondering if to kind of even out that concerning question, and it doesn't have to happen this time, but maybe for future consideration of if we were not to have a cap, or if that was a consideration that we wanted to pursue, then maybe on the other side of it, we would say that these funds are intended to be used for this purpose to serve this intention. And so anybody who is a nonprofit, for example, who came to do this would then have to say, we are meeting the strategic plan of this grant purpose by doing this activity with this money. More so than it's pretty general right now, but maybe if we wanted to make sure that the intention of those dollars served a specific need and purpose, that might be a good way to balance that out. I'm not sure. I think right now it'd be great to really just see where this goes and what projects come to us. And right now it does indicate that it's a first come, first serve kind of thing. But maybe we should also highlight the name of the fund is discretionary, so it's as at the board's discretion. But rather than seeing it as a pot that is, if you come first, you get it, if we agree with your purpose, then we will use our discretion to provide that grant. So obviously that's implied, but maybe that's helpful too for that consideration, other than thinking people can just check a box and be like, maybe 20,000, So just to make sure the purpose is withheld and understood further. But I like how it is right now. I agree that there are projects that need more than $2,500. And we have and previously supported those, and I suspect that we would want to again in the future, if the situation arises that's appropriate. So I like the checkbox idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, anything further than what you already said?
I don't think so. I understand your concerns, Trustee Cannon. And I think those are very valid as far as that goes. But I would still come back to, we have approved some of these things in larger amounts in the past. And it's like I said, I wouldn't want to discourage anybody from applying. Simply because they apply doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be approved, as Trustee Daly pointed out. So, so other than that, I would still be in favor of having some type of checkbox just to say, hey, we would like to go above and beyond that and bring it to the board, see what the board's consensus is. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I think the checkbox, let me set a timer for myself here. I think the checkbox is a great idea. You know, as Patty or Miss Garcia, sorry, stated, you know, it comes before the board before they ever get approved. So it gives them the opportunity to come before us and be in a public meeting where we can talk about it and figure out if we want to give them more or not. We saw a perfect example of that with the elevator, actually. So I think it would be wise for us to leave that box and have it checked. That's my take on it. Okay, any comments from the public on this item? You'll be given 3 minutes. No. Okay.
If you would like, if it would be simpler, I can bring this back and put it on consent at the next meeting. And that way you don't have to worry about doing motions with amendments and things like that. How does that sound?
Yeah, I'm down with
Okay,
that.
keeps it simple. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um,
Pardon me? You are the public. Did you want to talk? Yeah, did you want to speak? Okay, can you? go ahead?
so you'll state your name for the record and speak into the microphone, please.
Thank you.
A couple examples, when you're talking about nonprofit and not how you decide, I know that's probably real complicated. And careful, but what kind of project do you tend to pick out with this thing?
So,
Just a couple, throw 'em out.
yeah, I would love to talk with you about this outside of a meeting, because so public comment is for, comment and not questions. I'm not trying to be rude by any way, shape, or form, but we can definitely, touch base outside of this, and I can let you know.
Well, you're all aware of what the situation is.
Yeah,
But people are really angry about their bills and want. And at the, I mean, there are a lot of, we're all decent people and would like to help. But when you're in a bind about water and it looks like it's gonna get a lot worse, you tend to wonder if there's I can't even say it, discretionary funds and nonprofit organizations, that money's going there when they're struggling to pay their rent. That's just.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I know you don't usually respond, but I think to explain the hardship utility grant and how the discretionary funds were transferred over there would be really helpful.
Yeah, okay. So basically, we have a discretionary fund as the board to be able to, spend as we see fit. Usually what happens is people will fill out an application. Historically, in the past, nonprofits that we have funded would be Boys and Girls Club. And then most recently was, what's the Community Resource Center,
Yeah, Wellington Community.
which is going to be coming to town with a bunch of amenities for residents, and it was to help them get their elevator, so it would be ADA accessible. In speaking to what you stated on water, there are laws in place to where money can be moved from one account to another for a purpose of water, and this, I guess, wouldn't technically fall into it, but the HUD grant is where we've moved all of our discretionary funds this year. So we moved $19,500, the remainder of our discretionary fund this year, out of that into our HUG grant program, and that's the hardship utility grant. And so if somebody is having a hard time paying for their water, they can apply for that grant, and now that money is available for the purpose of people that are struggling with their water bills, if that. Yeah. And then and then I would ask if you're gonna keep speaking to please come to a microphone so the audience, okay. Thank you. Okay, next item, Ms. Clerk,
Mr. Mayor, point of order if I can, please. I'm not sure where we left off on this.
consent agenda?
No, not on the consent agenda, but, you know, this grant, the
Oh,
discretionary
yeah,
funds,
so,
the application for that.
sure,
whole
sure,
thing.
sure. Okay, so let's clear up that consent agenda deal. To my understanding, it was gonna be, may not exceed 2,500 with a box to check for them to request additional funds with no cap.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to move
Yeah.
this to the consent on the next meeting would be appropriate.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to include this in next meeting's consent agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
Perfect.
It's okay.
Who truly seconded? David?
Rebecca, trustee
It's
Daly.
okay.
Then make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Moyer,
Yes.
trustee Keats,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. I'll give you some time here. Next item will be item E2. Will the clerk please read the title for that?
Ordinance number 08-2024, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado.
Thank you. And then Mr. Dan Sapienza, the town attorney, will present. Mr. Sapienza.
This item's come back in front of you after our last meeting, where we talked about the model traffic code. Some specific questions were asked about it, and so I'm here to answer some of those questions. Unfortunately, I think my answer to some of those questions is these are things that need a lot more research. But I'll give you some background, and I really want to thank Trustee Teets for her research on some of these issues as well. I have learned an incredible amount about golf carts and low-speed electric vehicles that I didn't know, which only highlighted to me the fact that if we're going to legislate in this area, we need more research. My recommendation really at the end of this is if the board would like to legislate in these areas, I think we need to incorporate that into the budget process for analysis, study, and to do this in the future. So we'll get there. So the first question that was brought up during the discussion of the model traffic code last time was with regard to section 109.5, which has to do with low-speed electric vehicles. Trustee Teets raised the issue of, or raised a question of, are low-speed electric vehicles golf carts, first of all? Second, she asked if 109.5 said that low-speed electric vehicles may be driven on any road as long as the speed limit is 35 or less. And I believe her suggestion was to lower that to 25. So allow them to drive on any road with a speed limit of 25 or less. This led down some, as I said, some research into areas I was unfamiliar with about the difference between a golf cart and a low-speed electric vehicle. To the untrained eye, mine, these look like exactly the same thing. However, a low-speed electric vehicle, as I said, mentioned in the memo here, probably the biggest thing is it has safety equipment. It's got a windshield, it's got seat belts, it's got blinkers, it's got lights, it's got all of those things. It must be operated by somebody with a driver's license, a valid driver's license. It has a VIN, manufacturer's vehicle ID number, and in order to drive it, you must license it with the Colorado DMV. So for all intents and purposes, a low-speed electric vehicle is treated as your car. A golf cart, on the other hand, has a maximum speed of about 20 miles per hour. It does not require a driver's license. It does not necessarily have any of those safety features, and it doesn't have a vehicle ID number. It has a serial number. So while they might look like exactly the same thing, under Colorado law, they're treated very differently. So section 109.5 of the Model Traffic Code dealing with low-speed electric vehicles doesn't mean you can just drive a golf cart right off of a golf course onto the streets. So that was news to me. And one item that I put in this memo was I was unaware of a process. I couldn't find a process for converting a golf cart to a low-speed electric vehicle. And again, Trustee Teets actually called, I believe she called CDOT and asked, or called the DMV and asked, how can that be done? And there is a process.
You have to get it retrofitted, you have to get inspections and get it a vehicle ID number, and then it could be licensed as long as it has those safety equipment. So that's the answer to the first part of the question. Is low-speed electric vehicle is model traffic code allowing golf carts on the streets, and no, it's not. It's allowing specific vehicles that are licensed, and they're allowed to drive in all across Colorado. They are far more expensive, in my understanding, than a standard golf cart, but they are treated as different. There are other towns, and part of going back to some earlier conversations that the board has had, there are towns that permit golf carts and other non-licensed vehicles on certain streets. That is not what is being done here with the model traffic code. So the question for the board is, would you like to have the town staff research more on golf carts and OHVs? And if so, I think what you want to do is to put that into the budget to study the matter. There are a lot of rules about which streets a golf cart, if you were to allow them, could go on or couldn't go on. They can't drive on Cleveland Avenue. They couldn't drive on the overpass. They couldn't drive on the trails. They can't drive on the frontage road. They can't drive on a lot of the streets. So there's kind of, really, if you want to legislate in this area, I would highly recommend basically a road inventory to figure out where these things would even be allowable. And that's just far exceeds the scope of what I wanted to, what I could do, personal, not a traffic safety engineer, but I think would be really possible within this time frame. So that's kind of the first point about low-speed electric vehicles. Second part of the discussion coming from the last meeting was on excess weight vehicles. There's a question about what the model traffic code would allow with heavy vehicles, and specifically in light of heavy trash trucks. And I put information in the memo, what I could find about electric trash trucks and their weights. A standard trash truck weighs about 35,000 pounds. And they can usually carry about 10 to 20,000 pounds of trash. You're talking a 50,000 pound vehicle. An electric trash truck usually will have about 5,000 additional pounds just for the batteries. And so often they'll actually carry a lower load to accommodate for that. So usually it's a filled electric trash truck is going to be in the same area of weight, but we're still talking about a 50,000 pound vehicle. Under the model traffic code, the maximum weight allowable on any street is 85,000 pounds. That is a real heavy vehicle. They're very uncommon. There's a lot of accommodations in there for, number of axles, and there's some calculations about how that's determined. At the last meeting, I mentioned that there is a part of our Wellington Town Code that deals with excess weight vehicles, and I need to correct a statement that I made then. Our land use code talks specifically about excess weight vehicles, and it defines an excess weight vehicle as a vehicle weighing more than 10,000 pounds. However, that being our land use code, it's really about parking. So we have a limitation here in the town of Wellington about parking of excess weight vehicles. There's limitations on where semis can be parked and RVs and the like, but it's not a limitation on driving excess weight vehicles in the town. Specifically with regard to trash trucks, there is a license requirement for a waste hauler in the town, and that license fee is about $500. Other municipalities treat the waste hauler license very differently than the town of Wellington. So if trash trucks are specifically an issue we'd like to address, I would highly recommend that also be studied, pulled out, and be talked about as part of the waste hauler's license. And if there's a desire to have a weight limit on roads in the town, which might be appropriate, again, far outside of the scope of what I can do, we can't just come up with a random number. So if the board would like to look into this, I think it's something that would need to be budgeted, really to do an analysis of our streets and what a good, effective, and real weight limit would be. Anytime you're talking about streets and traffic study, there's traffic engineers who have degrees in these things. It's their entire job. We should rely on them before kind of legislating in these areas. So those are the 2 points that I was asked to bring back. Happy to answer questions that I have, and actually, if it's with regard to low-speed electric vehicles and golf carts, I know Trustee Teets knows a whole lot about them. She's done a ton of research in the last couple of weeks. She's been a great resource on this. But if you have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I do think, though, that we don't need to consider, you don't need to consider these as part of model traffic code update necessarily. The model traffic code that I presented last week, which again has to come back for a hearing, we need to give proper notice to actually adopt that. statutory processes. We like our processes. If you'd like to do that, we can still do that. The 2024 traffic code, model traffic code is primarily some technical fixes. These items, whether it's golf carts, whether it's access-way vehicles, whether it's trash haulers licenses, those could be adopted at a totally separate process. So we could move forward, and if you want to study those other things to bring them back in later date, we can do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Sapienza.
Yep.
Trustee Teets?
Okay, yep, I think you pretty much covered most of our extended conversation related to this. And I think some of my questions stemmed from was the notification in the document, and I apologize, I'll have to find the page again and I can send it to you, Dan. Is it stated that the LSEVs and golf carts, if we were doing anything related to them on our roads, that it would have to be identified via signage. So I think that was one of my questions when we were looking at all of that stuff, as I was trying to figure out if we needed one, I guess, to budget for signage and items like that. But also I've been in support of the OHVs and golf carts coming to Wellington on our roads. I know there is additional options that you can apply for that will allow them to be driven on Cleveland and other areas in town. It's just an application through CDOT. My consideration comes from golf carts can be revamped into these low-speed electric vehicles. And when you look at the low speed of electric vehicles, when they get their VIN verification, that's where my question was coming from, is if they get pulled over and they have the correct documents, then what I'm curious about is if that's going to be extremely confusing to some people seeing golf carts that have been upgraded to these low-speed electric vehicles, because they can get a VIN, they can be insured. So that was my question related to the golf carts, is, I guess, being aware and maybe getting knowledge out related to there is a difference between the two. So when people see them driving around, it's not a free-for-all and people thinking that they can drive golf carts legally on our roads. So that was my information related to that, because if we do move forward and approve this, then you will start seeing vehicles that look a lot similar to golf carts on our roads, which may create confusion for residents. Related to the weight item, there was a few things that I had still had questions on, Dan, and one was related to, I see trash haulers and they define trash haulers as compactors, but they don't lay anything out definitive with relation to roll-offs. Do we have additional information for roll-offs that makes it where those heavier vehicles can be exempt?
So I think that this would be a conversation that would be had at a later point. Because this is all of this we can address after just updating our model traffic code. And if we want to pursue things with trash haulers, whatnot, we can. So I just want to make that point real quick. Trustee Teets?
No, I'm still here.
Okay. So are these questions you're looking for Dan to answer at a later point, and you're
Yes.
okay with the ordinance as it sits?
Well, I'm not okay with it as it sits until I understand what that excessive weight means for like trash roll-off deliveries and items like that.
Okay.
The model traffic code does not address specifically roll-offs versus trash haulers or any of that. None of that is in the model traffic code. The model traffic code has a weight limit, and that's, as I said, there's various parameters around that, but generally it's an 85,000 pound maximum weight. But it does not distinguish, really the conversation about trash haulers, the reason I said that's really about our licensing, and that could be addressed later, is the trash hauler, whether it's a trash truck, a compactor, or a roll-off, that's really outside of the model traffic code. That could be addressed via our trash hauler license or a separate ordinance related to that. So no, the model traffic code does not distinguish between the two.
Got it. Thank you. I don't have any more questions right now.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Moore.
I don't have any questions, but I will say that at this time, I'm not supportive of a golf cart study and spending the funds on that. As our friends earlier stated, perception is everything, and I don't believe that that would be a responsible use of funds at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
Thank you, trustee Moyer. I am 100% against golf carts on our roads and our streets. And as I mentioned the last time this was brought to us, there are a lot of vehicles that are scooters, little mopeds, and not necessarily moped, these off-road motorcycles and small four-wheelers zipping up and down our streets with young kids doing this. They're not licensed. They don't have the right safety equipment, and I don't think this is something we need to entertain at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
After going through all of this, I really feel sorry for the police trying to figure out who they can ticket and who they cannot ticket at this time. I mean, I didn't realize a three-wheeled electric vehicle, you need a license to drive it. I think that was in here. So I got to give them, I mean, it's fantastic that they can understand this good enough. But I think the biggest thing here is the uniformity. We got to have it so we're cohesive with the rest of the state so they know what to do with it. So again, we can go, we can look at other things down the road if we want to bring that up, but we need the uniformity. And I think our town needs that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Sapienza. I would be in favor of adopting the code as presented, and I really appreciate the clarity around the excess weight vehicles. Yeah, it sounds like it is true that load sizes are in fact decreased with the advent of electric trucks. That was also what I had found in my research. So I think I'm good on that topic as far as the future goes. I feel like the roll-offs thing is certainly defined as far as the 85,000 maximum cap number. So I'm not maybe convinced that needs to be addressed going forward, but I would be in favor of adopting the code as presented tonight.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Daly.
Regarding the low-speed electric vehicles, I think that if somebody were to go through the effort of registering their vehicle and making sure it meets all the safety requirements and registers it with the state and operates it with their state driver's license, that they should absolutely be able to do that with the standard laws that are uniform across the state. So we shouldn't have restrictions of lower speeds here versus other places based off of a registered vehicle with a registered driver. So I don't want to make any exceptions or changes to our laws as compared to what you would see otherwise in uniform traffic code across the state. So, but that is not your average golf cart either. So we have done extensive research and learned a lot about other options for vehicles or golf carts and things to be on the roads. We kind of considered that in the past. I don't know how many people are familiar with that conversation or presentation, but there was a lot of consideration, overhead fees, administrative costs, registrations locally, signage that was required. So if that was something we were going to take on, it would be a considerable cost, not just a study in how we would do it, but a study to deploy it. And in order to recoup those costs from registrations of those vehicles alone, it would not be affordable for anyone to do it. So I think it's unfortunately not a winning situation, and I agree that we should not spend any funds to pursue that further at this time. Regarding the heavy vehicles, my conversation last time was a little confusing because I was talking around it myself, but the actual trash haulers that come to your house, pick up trash, that's not as concerning as when I'm talking about like a tractor trailer that goes from one transfer station to another and has multiple loads of condensed trash, for example, and would be excessively more heavy than a regular trash truck that drives around your neighborhood. Those are the ones that are not appropriate to be anywhere in the streets of Wellington. So there's other conversations around that can help us with that conversation, really, because there's, one major purpose for that would happen up County Road 9. So we can consider that. I do also not recommend that we put any money at this time towards considering any trash hauler licensing information, only because if and when MOU regarding the solid waste, intergovernmental agreement that we have, it were to start again, one of the main goals that I would seek out of that is to seek the recommendations of a county, minimum requirements for trash hauler licensing, and to comply to and be consistent across the county. So if we were to put a lot of money and effort into figuring that out, and then later on receive those guidelines and recommendations from the county, as I would hope what we would through that agreement, that would have been wasted effort and funds as well. So there are some minor requirements and recommendations. It is worth addressing and viewing, but I don't think we're at that time right now to make most effective use of that time and effort. So I am completely a fan of how it is written, and I appreciate all the clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sapienza.
Can I make one addition to this very quick?
Go
At the
for it.
last meeting, Trustee Cannon raised the question of
Buses.
the town didn't incorporate the section of model traffic code around yielding to traffic buses, traffic vehicles, or transit buses is the word. So I have changed in the ordinance that's in here, and there's a red line, putting that back in. So in the town of Wellington, we would add back in that provision around yielding to transit. So have been discussed, that's in here. So if you do move forward with scheduling this for the further hearing, that is currently included in this motion.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important for us to have the most current edition of the model traffic code, so we are making it as easy as possible for law enforcement agencies that are working in the county, other towns, and then ours to know those laws. And then, I mean, if the board so wishes to talk about other things at a later date, so be it. I would be in opposition of it personally because of taxpayer dollars and bigger fish to fry. So that's my 2 cents. Open it up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes. Please state your name at the podium for the record.
Nicole Hicks. I'd just like to say, excuse me, Rebecca kind of cleared it up as far as just trash trucks. But you have other things that weigh a lot. You have tractors, you have semis, you have your farmers, you have what she was describing, live bottoms, you have buses, you have cattle haulers. Like, I just would ask that you don't just single out us as your trash haulers, because without us and the trash not going anywhere, we're gonna have a serious problem in the town of Wellington. We already have people doing townwide cleanups and stuff trying to keep the trash out. So if you take the trash haulers and put weight restrictions and stuff on them, we're gonna have lighter vehicles, but that means we're gonna be making numerous trips back and forth, which is more wear and tear on our roads, which is what we're trying to avoid. So I just ask that if you're going to do that, make it a blanket, not just single out one, trash hauler or semi or something like that, because it should be blanketed.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
Sorry about that. Would that affect your company with the weight restriction on the trucks that you have?
So I just got these numbers here this evening. So I haven't had a chance to really look at the numbers. Off the top of my head, no, with the trucks I have currently. But is it going to cause a problem? Someone brought up the roll-offs, because I didn't see that. So the roll-offs is, at this point in time on secondary streets, I can be up to 85,000, which none of my trucks get that heavy. But I believe I'm okay. But don't quote me on that, because I haven't had a whole lot of time to look it over.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you mind if I have another comment?
By all means.
Thank you. Just keep in mind, folks, that that there are engineering standards for public roads here in Wellington that deal with how the asphalt is laid, how the base is laid, and it gives a weight requirement on those. We also have the frontage roads, which are CDOT, and they have a different standard because they're probably rated for the 80,000 as opposed to a private street in town, which may be in the 40,000 pound range. I think that adopting the model code is something that we could continue with and bring it to next month's meeting for the public hearing and so forth. Questions about roll-offs and weights and electric trash haulers and so forth like that. And I don't see transfer trucks coming through our residential area. They may come down Highway 1, which is rated for that kind of weight. But they won't be in our subdivisions on McKinley or Second Street and so forth like that. So I would be in favor of going ahead and let's schedule this for the public hearing to adopt the model code. We're moving into the budget season, and I don't want to weigh down staff too much with a lot of extra research as we're spending the next 2 to 3 months going through this extensive budgeting process. It could be something that could be looked at later on, and I'm pretty sure our Public Works Department already has weight requirements listings for all of our streets in our towns as well. So it's not like a research that they would have to do, but I kind of agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that you know, let's just move on. Let's be standardized with the rest of the state and give our law enforcement clear direction on how to enforce that traffic code. And if it comes back up, let's say after the first of the year, 2025, that might be another time that we can kind of look at this again, if
Board so chooses.
if the board chooses to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to schedule ordinance 08-2024 for a public hearing at the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on October 8th, 2024.
I second.
Ms. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Trustee Daly,
Yes.
Trustee Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. All right, on to reports. Any reports, Mr. Dan Sapienza?
No report at this time.
Thank you. Town Administrator, Ms.
I will not be present at the next regular town board meeting, so just make sure you're aware of that.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
Very quickly, I wanted to give you an update on the status of the HUD grants. Total grants issued as of, I believe it was last Friday, $15,553.48. The average is $360.64 since the change has been made. 34 grants have been issued since the August 20 meeting. So there's another almost $16,000 left for those who want to apply for a HUD grant.
Thank you. Any board reports? Trustee Moyer?
I have exciting news from Safe Routes to School. We had our monthly meeting with the National Safe Routes partners, and we have been cleared to spend the rest of our remaining grant funds on 3 bike fix stations for Parks and Rec. So those will be located at parks around the city, and we're very, very excited. Thank you, Cody, about that. And shout out to Billy and Cody for being on those meetings with me every month. Thanks. Another thing, Patty, I would love to talk to you about a rubric in response to Trustee Daly's comments about structuring the awarding of funds. I'm currently reviewing lots of applications right now, and I think we could create something to weight a weighted scoring system based on alignment with our strategic plan.
Thank you. Trustee Teets?
Yes. I would like to give a special thank you to Miss Karen Eifert, LCSO, the town staff, ARC of Larimer County, Pasco Services, and Trustee Wiegand and Sept Food Truck for the ADA barbecue that was held here for our community. It was a very, very fun event. Parks did an amazing job, and Kelly Houtling also did an amazing job supporting this event, and it's near and dear to my heart. So I'm very grateful for all the time and effort that everyone spent in planning this. We got to meet a lot of new residents, faces that I have not seen before in the community, and I think the most important thing about it is faces that not a lot of people see in our community that don't come out and navigate very often. So I think that that was pretty amazing. Other than that, no, I think that, yeah, it was an amazing event and it was touching to see.
Thank you, Trustee Teets. Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
I want to say thanks to Trustee Teets there too, being out there at the ADA barbecue. It was a good time. I mean, very well attended, and the town staff did a fantastic job out there too. Also too, we did get to tour the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, and that was really educational over the weekend. We got great staff out there, and for the last couple years going through COVID, all the handicaps that had going through that, and for our people that we had build those facilities to come in or under budget is just phenomenal. So definitely want to put my hats off to them guys, big time. And I do have one quick question, and I don't know if this needs to be brought up at a work session, but stop signs for Second McKinley. Can you give us what would be the procedure to get that taken care of?
So Safe Routes to School is currently working with Public Works on a CIP grant that was awarded and mapping out different places throughout town that need additional services. And I have already sent an email to make sure they're on the list.
So do we have kind of a time frame maybe on that? Was it going to be a year, 6 months, 2 months, or
Tomorrow?
tomorrow?
That I don't know. I can bring that back to you at another date. I will let you know, though.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, no, Trustee Cannon.
Spoken enough tonight. Just as a note, next week, Trustee Moyer and I will be attending the CML District 2 meeting in Fort Collins. This is a good opportunity. I think there's still vacancies. Is that right, Patty? If anyone else wants to join?
Sure, we can, and Trustee Teets has signed up as well. So
That's
there'll be 3 of you and I have signed up, so, and we can send in RSVPs until tomorrow. So
Thank you.
5 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity. If there are other trustees that would like to attend this, a great opportunity to meet other elected officials within the region, to find out, what's going on with CML, what's going on within other organizations, and to brag a little bit about all the good things that Wellington is doing. So I'm looking forward to that meeting, and I may not be at next week's meeting. My wife and I are leaving for vacation. I'm not sure we'll be back in time for the work session, but I'll just keep you advised. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Daly.
I wanted to give a congratulations to the Wellington Eagles for their first home game win, a massive, massive win last Friday. So that was wonderful and lovely. And I attend with a bunch of my girlfriends and their families, and none of us have football players. So we're just out there cheering. I suggest everybody do it because it's a wonderful event. We have other games coming up, lots of Friday nights, and playing Timnith apparently at Canvas Stadium. Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be playing our biggest rivals for the Sugar Beet Trophy. I think that's what, I'm sorry, guys. Again, like I said, I don't have a football player, but I'm a fan. at Canvas Stadium, and that's a big deal. That's so exciting. So I hope everybody who is interested will come out, look up the schedules. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'll probably tell you something wrong, but just know that they're playing awesome. They look wonderful. And thank you to all the coaches and fans and people who are working to support them, including a lot of local businesses as well. So shout out to Wellington Eagles. Well done. Well done. Otherwise, we still have a few more weeks or a couple more weeks of the Wellington Main Street Market for downtown farmers market. Next one will be on Thursday. So I hope you can attend. And another thing you can do this week, if you would like to embarrass me and or our mayor potentially.
Oh, yeah, I'll be there.
Is on Saturday, Sparchtoberfest, another amazing Wellington nonprofit. We'll be raising funds, and by doing that as part of their 5K event, there's other local celebrities as well that will be dunked. We'll be in a dunk tank, so it's a fundraiser. You can buy softballs, baseballs, or whatever you want, and try to throw us and get us dunked. It's pretty cold, but it's very fun. So I suggest you come out and also register for their 5K earlier in the day. So it's on Saturday at 9 a.m. is when that first race starts. So I will be in the tank at 11:30 if you would like to dunk me in particular. But thank you to all of our local nonprofits for making wonderful community events, getting people together and raising great funds for amazing causes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Trustee Daly stole my update as far as the 5K and associated dunk tanks. So look forward to seeing you guys down there.
What time are you scheduled, sir?
I am not scheduled, but I might be announcing the race.
Oh.
I'm not sure how that's going to go
Oh,
yet,
okay.
but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, same but different. Cool. Yeah, I'll be in the dunk tank, I believe 2:00, 2:30, something like that. So if you want to dunk me, by all means, show up. I think that's all that I have. Yeah, that's all I have for this evening. Having no further business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Clerk, may I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
Trustee Daly.
Yes.
Trustee Mayor,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you. I now adjourn the regular meeting, time being 6. Come on, computer. Sorry, my computer's messed up. 7:52 p.m.